Hi guys, it's Miss Arneson. I'm going to read this article out loud and record it so that those of you who want to follow along can. But remember that it's not a requirement, so if you want to skip this video, you're welcome to. I will probably pause and give notes because I just can't help myself. So you might get a little bit more information if you do listen. Here we go. So this is from PBS, which is the public broadcasting station. Our local one is KRWG, so I'm sure you've seen that on TV. And this is one of their shows that they have made about polar bears. So it's called Bears of the Last Frontier, Arctic Wanderers, How Grizzlies Evolved into Polar Bears. So this is going to be about evolution, and it's going to be about evolution on a macro scale, or a big scale, and a micro scale. The icon of the Arctic, the polar bear, is the ultimate survivor in one of the harshest areas on Earth. Reigning over a world of ice, tundra, and snow, this carnivore would seem to have a lineage that traces back to some mammoth creature of the icy regions. But in fact, the polar bear's closest ancestor is a land carnivore we associate more strongly with our forests. Over the years, scientists have uncovered an evolutionary path suggesting that polar bears are a relatively new species, and they're actually a subspecies of Ursus arctos, a more widely known as the brown bear. Scientific evidence has found that the brown bear, a species that also includes grizzly bears, was a precursor to polar bears, which then went on to develop specializations for inhabiting the harsh Arctic. So this paragraph, or these two paragraphs, can be summed up by saying, well, polar bears are really freaking huge, and they're perfectly fit to live in the Arctic. So maybe they evolved from really, really, really old creatures. But when we looked at the evidence, we found that they actually evolved basically recently, and they are they're living relatives of the brown bear. Proving their genetic compatibility, brown bears and polar bears can mate and produce viable or fertile offspring. Just so you guys know, the definition of the word species is that the two organisms, like if they're part of the same species, they can mate and have fertile offspring. So fertile means that their babies can have babies. So if you think of like a mule and a donkey, a horse and a donkey? I don't know. A horse and a donkey, they have a mule baby, and mules can't have babies. So horses and donkeys are not the same species. In 2006, a hybrid grizzly bear polar bear, which some called a pizzly, was discovered in the Canadian Arctic, providing researchers proof that grizzly bears and polar bears can interbreed, even in the wild. And when researchers in Alaska compared the DNA of brown bears from around the world looking for genetic links, they made an interesting discovery. About one population of brown bears in particular. Analysis of the DNA of a distinct population of brown bears living on Alaska's ABC Islands, about 900 miles south of the nearest polar bear, revealed that the ABC bears were even more closely related to polar bears genetically than they were to other brown bears. So there's this little population that lives kind of geographically isolated on these islands, and instead of being more closely related to other brown bears, this population of brown bears was more related to the polar bears. So that was like a mystery, like how is this happening? So just when did polar bears arise as a separate subspecies? Genetic models show that the emergence of the polar bear could have taken place as recently as 70,000 years ago, or as many as 1.5 million years ago. For many years, a fossil found at Kew Bridge in London was considered the oldest polar bear specimen. The fossil then placed the evolution at around 70,000 years ago. But recently, scientists uncovered a fossilized jawbone from an island in the Arctic Ocean midway between Norway and the North Pole that dated to be at least 100,000 years old. Scientists believe that this jawbone may represent the remains of the oldest known polar bear, thus making the appearance of the polar bear earlier than previously thought. Relying on the fossil record and DNA analysis, scientists have been able to arrive at a clear picture of the polar bear's evolutionary path over the millennia. Some 200,000 years ago, when glaciers covered much of Eurasia, the Arctic Ocean was completely frozen. It was during this challenging period that brown bears began to wander in search of food. Approximately 125,000 years ago, a population of brown bears in the far north of their range was likely split off from the other brown bear ancestors, possibly because of competition for food. The population likely became isolated by massive glaciers. While most died in the harsh environment, those bears with an evolutionary advantage, the ideal color coat, and thickness for extreme cold, survived and bred. Over thousands of years, this population of bears underwent further evolutionary change, adapting even more specialized traits for surviving in the harsh polar environment. When life in the north demanded teeth better shaped for ripping apart seals than munching berries, the polar bear's molar teeth changed significantly from those of the brown bear. The bears also grew white fur, which camouflaged them in their snow-covered surroundings and gave them a hunting advantage. Scientists believe that, at first, these bears scavenged seal carcasses that had washed ashore, and then gradually began to hunt the seals by waiting at the water's edge as the seals surfaced to breathe. This is believed to be an important step in the evolution of the new subspecies of bear, Ursus maritimus, or the polar bear. Nature once again exerted extreme pressure on the brown bear that eventually gave rise to a new, better adapted subspecies, the polar bear. Now, once again, evolutionary forces are acting on this long-enduring species as the Arctic warms the polar bear's unique specializations that once lent it an evolutionary edge may now be the creature's downfall. A changing climate may name the new king of the Arctic, the fierce and opportunistic brown bear.